what I was trying to say is that it's more of an emphasis about what the women are doing at the onset of the pregnancy, but a lack of follow through in your debate with the quality of life following that. So following like people utilizing public assistance to raise their children, following like disproportionate racism and economic disparities among ethnicities and things like that. More minorities that utilize abortion. I had an abortion like close to 10 years ago and I still stand by it. Still stand by it. Did I walk in and get an abortion today? No. Like, I'm just trying to get some information. If I have, that's my personal business. And I shouldn't be heckled or stressed as I'm trying to go in and make a decision, a life decision.
Well, right. So, I understand your concerns about it.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm college educated, and I've lived on the East Coast, and I've lived here, and I've been in different relationships with different guys who aren't trying to really support raising a child, and I'm just another single parent utilizing public assistance to raise my kid. Right? A kid that I might not have actually wanted.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What about in a situation where a father wants to keep the kid?
He didn't.
No, I understand your personal situation, but I'm talking about if a father wants to keep the child.
Then I can sign over my paternal rights and he can raise the kid.
What? I'm sorry?
Then I can sign over my paternal rights and he can raise the kid.
Right, but the thing is the way that they're saying the laws apply today is a father doesn't have a right to that child. Only the woman does, and she can make the decision for the father, right? I mean is that fair? I mean, is that just? So let me put it another way. Would it be okay to come up with a law to say, okay, women can have the right to choose, and so should men, whether or not, if the woman doesn't choose to keep the child, that the father could say, well, I don't want to pay child support. Now that does take place, right? It does already. Men dodge it all the time, but we're talking about justice. Terrible. We're talking about justice, right? I raised 4 kids on my own for 6 years.
I commend you for that.
For 6 years, my ex, she was a meth head, crazy.
Yeah,
and I adopted a child that she had apart from me. My youngest boy is not even biologically mine. I value life so much that I took him. I mean, I could have just said, let him go into the system because his real dad didn't care. Men are jerks, but women could be as well.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why we're out here is we're not here to make you angry. We're not here to really stir up controversy. It's to make you think about what is actually happening, right?
The fact that the other person,
right. We're not here to heckle you.
The other 50% of that DNA. I get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Okay.
But also, too, you have to see it as a woman's womb is kind of like an incubator, and maybe she doesn't want to be that human incubator.
I understand there's a lot of things that, as human beings, that we don't want to do, but taking certain courses of action don't make it okay because we just don't want to do it.
Not only that, but God gives you free will to choose. So I can choose to do what I want to do, and I know I'm held accountable for my consequences and my sins.
Yeah.
It's my choice. My choice.
And so are you a believer or?
A believer of what? God?
Right, a Christian. You put your faith in
I am a
Christ.
reformed thinker, a believer of God. I am.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of things that I agree with in the Bible, and there's a lot of things I'm like, I got to add my logic. I'm very black and white.
Okay.
Very analytical, very black and white.
Yeah.
So there's that spiritual context of it, and then there's like, no, that doesn't make sense.
Okay, well that's good because
and you want me to rely on my faith to make sure that money from the sky comes down like manna. Like, where's my support? Like, I need to make a decision by 5 p.m. today about am I going to be able to pay my rent or feed my kids?
Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah, like so I'm just like, and it's so sad because I know a lot of women probably come here and they're not able to speak about that other side. They may not be informed.
Yeah.
And I have the intellect that I have because I chose to give up my kid and finish my college degree that I put myself through school at Cal State to do.
Right.
Right?
But I mean, so what's your opinion on what is taking place in the womb? I mean, what is?
I feel like the way it is, in terms of Roe versus Wade, in terms of women making that decision, it should continue. I mean, if you really want to impact the lives of young children, then continue to do what you're doing. There's a lot of kids. I can point you to a whole city. I took a job at a warehouse when I first came back to California.
Yeah.
And I came across 10 people in Moreno Valley that worked in Riverside who are all in foster homes. And then I did a little research and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a city where they quote unquote dump or put foster children. And these are kids who become adults who I'm at work, they're selling cocaine Okay, driving forklifts drunk.
Yeah.
I used to call it marijuana row because when we
Yeah.
go on break, you make a right and you smell nothing but marijuana. These are children who were raised in foster care. If you're really concerned about the lives of individuals, start there. Start with the people who are already here that are like really, really messed up and need help.
So can we share something with you? Is our
Sure.
church, from what I understand, because I've seen it with my own eyes,
Yeah.
adopts more children than any other group in this city.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. We have dozens, if not multiple dozens, of parents in our church currently fostering children seeking to adopt them.
Yeah.
We've had at least, 50 children adopted
Oh yeah.
since we've been there? Seriously.
Mhm.
And I've only been there 6-7 years. Okay? So we are proactively doing that while we're doing this.
Okay.
Yep.
My wife and I can't adopt because my wife that I have now, she had 2 abortions.
Okay.
She was in prison for 11 years. Christ saved her.
Right.
And she's 8 years drug free. She comes out here when she's not working because she does housekeeping, but she works every other Saturday. And we can't adopt children, but we can support guys like this that actively seek to do stuff like that. And the other men and women in our church that do adopt children, I support them, but I do this at the same time
Mhm.
because I believe that life is a gift from God. And it starts the moment a sperm enters an egg. Scientists have proven it. So just to kind of touch on what you said a minute ago is the Roe versus Wade. You do understand that Roe versus Wade was based off of faulty science that basically was borrowed from Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan believed that the human development was evolutionary. It started as a little tiny egg zygote, became a fish, turned into a chicken, then a pig, then a monkey, and then a human being. There's 5 stages. Now that we have ultrasounds and we can stick cameras even into the womb to see what's taking place, we know that that science is false. So the whole basis, and quite frankly, Roe versus Wade is not a law. It was just a decision by the Supreme Court. It was not voted by the House of Representatives or the Senate or even signed by the President. It's not a law.
Okay.
So actually, what is happening here, if our lawmakers were, or even our law enforcement were actually doing their job, these places wouldn't exist because it's not a law. What is happening is illegal.
But they do so much more than just abortion, though.
Well, we know that.
I understand that,
Yeah,
and
it's just so much more than that.
and we have
It's birth control.
right. We have
it's-
information for other groups that don't perform abortions that provide those same services, and that's what we're trying to give out to women. We're trying to share the gospel with them, and even the men. We talk to the men as well. Be responsible. You had a part in what is happening here, right?
It's such a bigger issue, though. I mean, we're talking about the culture. We're talking about the media. We're talking about the morals and the standards that have declined. Like,
Sure.
Absolutely.
do you want to?
Oh, no, we-
take all that on as well.
We are. We
Well,
are.
You know,
Like,
yeah, but that gets, I mean, you understand that does get taken on. I mean, those are all things that happen. We're obviously, when we're standing out here on the sidewalk, we're not out here necessarily actively, doing something for, like, foster care system. I mean, that's not our point right here at this exact moment in time.
Exactly.
maybe.
Right? We have an exact moment of time right here where we're trying to prevent a mother from making the decision to go in there and have an abortion. Right? We're trying to save a child with anything we can. We offer everything that's possible. We offer, like Keith talked about, we've got, there's adoption, our church is waiting on standby. They'll adopt anybody. If someone turns away from here and says, I'll keep my baby and give it up for adoption, we have people that are immediately ready to do it. I mean, we offer everything. We don't want there to be any reason why a mother thinks that this is her only option. We want a mother to understand that we can come alongside, we can help with anything, shelter anything, and we've got it. You know what I mean?
We have care bags that they can take right now, and then we get their number, and then we can continue to give them things like this to help them out if they need it.
And we're out here for every bit. I mean, that's our purpose and point out here at this moment to do, right?
What
I
about
mean,
the
there is so
individual-
much. There is so much afterwards, like you're talking about,
Mhm.
right? When a child's born, they deserve to have every quality of life that any human being should have, right? We believe that quality of life is deserved at conception, because there's no other. You can't pick another black and white point in the development of a human being that says this is when your life begins. There's no other black and white point. There's no 6 months isn't when life begins. You can't pick a point there and say that's when life begins. You can't say 20 days after conception, that's when life begins.
Yeah, we're arguing stage of development. There are people who are 70s and in their 80s and they're living on life support. That's a stage of development. They're just as innocent as that child in the womb. So there are laws that protect people from ending their life because of their quality of life. Their quality of life is terrible, right? They can't move. They're on a ventilator. It's the same thing as a child. They're dependent on the mother. Someone who's in a coma or on a ventilator is dependent upon other people to keep them alive. So the argument of quality of life really doesn't stand up per se.
Have you had those conversations with people that hooked up to ventilators who want to be taken off and who want to die and who don't?
Yeah,
want to be in that
actually,
vegetative
just
state?
recently, a month ago, my sister-in-law, who's a severe drug user, her bowels were opened up. They couldn't close them up because they were deteriorating from what she had done to her body, and she was on a ventilator. And I've had these conversations with my mother-in-law, and also with her when she came through. She was basically in a chemically induced coma for a month. So this has been going on for 2 months.
Okay. And what were her wishes?
She wanted to live. She wanted to live. She didn't want to die.
She wanted to live in that state like that?
She currently is right now. She's living in a care facility right now in San Luis Obispo. They were going to send her to Riverside. Unfortunately, Medi-Cal wouldn't pay for that, so she has to stay in San Luis.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes you have people who choose, I want to make a choice. Like, I want to make a choice about my life, about the end stage of my life, and I don't want to be hooked up to machines. I don't want to be in a vegetative state, so let me out, let me go.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Right,
So it's like, I don't feel like somebody else should speak on that. And not only that, but I got to a point where I made my decision. I was like, I don't want this kid to exist because I don't want 50% of my DNA out there commingled with this guy's DNA. I don't want that. I don't want that. And that was a very harsh decision to come to, and I still stand by that. I don't want that. I don't want our blood mingling.
Yeah.
I don't want to see any remnants of me and you. No, I don't want that.
So
And you have people who think like that.
can I ask you a honest question without it sounding offensive?
Mhm.
Seriously, because we're here to love on you, right?
Mhm.
I don't want to sound offensive, but in your own mind, do you see that as maybe as something as a selfish thinking?
No,
You don't?
I don't. I'm a different type of thinker. I don't. I really don't.
So back to like what Nick was saying, as far as stage of development of life. Where do you believe that a baby becomes a human being? I mean, someone who's actually physically a human being, mentally, physically, spiritually.
When do I consider them to my own definition?
Yeah.
Because I even have reservations about when they're born and they're born with deficits.
What
When babies are born with deficits.
do you mean with deficits? You mean
Like cognitive developmental deficits.
But they're less than human.
like they're
Not they're less than human, but there's going to be a different style of parenting that's going to be required.
Absolutely.
There's going to be a different style of equipment that you're going to need that insurance may not cover, or I may have to wait, and now I'm stressed because I don't have what my kid needs. Like, there's so many other aspects of it that you have to consider.
right. So what I'm hearing from you, and I'm not trying to be offensive, but
No.
but what I'm hearing from you is that child's life isn't as important as my comfortability.
I'm not going to say that child's life is less important because I actually did work with the DD population. So no, I'm not going to say
Okay.
that. I'm just going to say that there's a lot to consider.
Right, but it sounds like I'm what I'm hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is your comfortability seems to be more at the forefront of the decision making.
Mm-hmm. I am. I mean, I know all about putting your because I grew up in the church ever since I was a baby until now. Putting your faith on God, carrying your cross every single day. I know all about that. I know all about that.
Mm-hmm.
I was prepared to go serve a mission with the Mormon church. I know all about, I could barf that. I used to teach Sunday school. I could barf that. But there's also another aspect of it while I'm like, oh my God, my anxiety is like off the roof. As
Right.
I'm praying and laying on the floor and fasting and waiting for God to show up, I am stressed. I am absolutely stressed.
And this is from Mormonism, or?
This is just from being a Christian overall. Like, Mormons believed in Jesus Christ. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've been a part of the AME Church. I've been Kojic. I've
The
been
what?
everything. AME, African Methodist Episcopal
Okay.
Church.
Yeah.
Like, I've always been able to find my way back to Jesus, where Jesus finds his way back to me. So there's so many different parts to it. That's why I say I'm a reformed thinker. Like, I think differently, and I know that. That's why I don't necessarily voice my opinions with my church friends because they have a different way of thinking than I do, and I know that, and I know what I say could come across as being too harsh.
Wow.
I get that.
And,
Yeah.
and some people are sensitive. Some people are
And
sensitive.
some
They
people
can't
are
take
very
it.
sensitive, and they become very
Yeah.
resistant and hostile. That's why I'm like, and I know I'm a very outspoken individual, you know, but
We appreciate you talking to us.
no, I know
There's a lot
because
of-
I
you
know
know,
you
honestly,
probably don't have a lot of women that engage, or
there's
they're
not
like,
a lot
here
of
we
people
go
that
again,
do,
like
you
look at
know.
your sign, like what the
They'll
hell,
come
like.
grab
It
our
happens
stuff.
once in a while, but we appreciate
once
when
in a
people do. I mean,
Because the one thing that stuck in my mind when I had my abortion, I think it was about 10 years ago in this city, was damn, I wish I could have just went in and out without having this crowd of like people, because that's what made it more stressful.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh, that was not pleasant at all. I never want to go back to that building again. So when this building was constructed, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so peaceful. Even though I'm not coming in here today for an abortion, I can get some information on childbirth. I also work for the county,
Mm-hmm.
which I hope you're not going to put that because
No.
I see the light on.
no, this
But I also
is this
work
is
for the
instructional for our
county.
group.
But
Seriously.
but you know, trying to help clients help navigate to that way they can get decisions.
Sure.
I just had a client who gave birth to a healthy 5-pound baby girl, and I was like, that's nothing but God, because she did meth and spice and smoke while she was pregnant.
God's gracious.
I was like, whoa, and made a connection with that baby, held
Yeah.
that baby for 30 minutes.
So do you go to church now? I mean, do you
No,
worship anyone?
I do
No.
not. And that's a whole nother conversation. I do not go
Sure.
to church.
I mean, that's primarily the reason why we're out here, is to share the
Yeah.
gospel.
Yeah, with
Of course, we
people.
want to save children, but we also want people to come to a saving faith in repentance
Yeah.
in Christ. I mean, do you believe in God? I mean,
Some days I do, and some days I don't.
some days you don't. Yeah.
Some days I do, and some days
I
I don't.
I think we
I've
all.
been on that other side. Like I felt the Holy Spirit. I felt other entities around me. I felt I've been in an almost of a car accident. I can bear testimony after testimony after testimony while driving and losing control, and my hand is not on the steering wheel, and my car literally did this. That's nothing but God. I know that. So I have days where I strongly believe, and then I have days I'm like, why is life so difficult? Like I don't understand.
So do you understand sin?
I understand sin in and out. Yep.
Okay, and
I'm
you know that,
understanding
well,
of that.
you expressed it before, you know,
Yeah.
sin has consequences.
Yeah,
Our
there are
choices have
consequences,
consequences. But, yeah, I think I would.
I just think it's a layered issue. That's
How?
the conclusion I'm going to come back to. It's
Yeah.
a layered issue. It's a layered issue.
I don't understand. I mean, kind of explain. What do you mean by layered?
Layered in the sense that it's not just about telling someone, don't go through and have that abortion, let that baby live.
Right.
You know,
Right. Well,
we're
that's-
also going to talk about what is, I guess, from a legal standpoint, the definition of somebody, like when is life, or the definition of like the
Mhm.
conception of life.
Right.
Everyone has a different understanding, and you also have to think about this too, and this is a spiritual aspect. You have human beings that are in our congressional membership that are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
These are not people that are called from God to run our country. These are people with their own agenda, wanting to get elected to represent your region and your state.
Sure.
Right? So these aren't people that are representatives of God, like, and we're going to sign this law and everybody's going to be on the same page. No.
Right.
Because God gave you free will to choose. You see what I'm saying? So it's
Kind of, because
it's layered. It's layered.
we would come from the position of original sin, where without Christ you can't do anything but sin and rebel against God. Now, we would also say that Scripture says that God sets up kings and brings down kings, government officials. I believe that Donald Trump is appointed by God's sovereign will to be there, whether it's good or bad. Whether it's
Right.
good or bad, because
I've
God
heard my mom say that
God
too.
does judge nations. He
Yeah.
judged Israel,
Yeah.
right, for rebellion, and he set up kings and judges to judge Israel, and we don't want that. And part of the reason why is because of this, the LGBTQ movement,
Mhm.
where we have now confusion of what a man and a woman is.
Right.
Right.
In different.
Okay, that's another issue, but I'm just pointing out different things that
Yeah.
brings about this. And Romans chapter 1 talks about this, that it'll get to a point where God will give them up to a depraved mind, to the point where you see it all over TV, like with Antifa. These are people who have an utterly depraved mind. They've sunk so low that now they're reacting in violence and physical violence, right? It's gotten to the point that their minds are so depraved in what they believe and what they think about these certain issues that when confronted with their sin, they become hostile, right?
Right.
Like what
and
you
I've
made,
seen that.
yeah. And you can see, you came in and mentioned, I'm not judging you.
Mhm.
You came in, as you came in and you said it was hostile. We don't want to be hostile.
The sign is hostile.
It's not hostile. Truth, it might be offensive because it's true.
And it's an attention. Like, I also...
And it's meant to be.
it's
You
a
understand
form
that,
of,
right?
kind of marketing,
And think about it.
Yeah.
If we were just standing here and we said, hey, can we give you information without that sign, you may or may not, I don't know, because the circumstances might have been different, but you may not have engaged us. We're happy you're here. We're having a very great conversation. It's calm, it's collected, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're respecting each other, and we have a difference of opinion.
Yeah, and I honestly...
And have we
enjoy
hurt
that.
you
Mhm.
in any way? I mean, that might seem hurtful to you, but
It's a flashback for me, yeah.
but as far as our conversation, have we hurt you? I mean, we've been
No,
respectful.
but I do want to go back. No, you have not hurt me.
Sure.
I have feelings of steel. But when you said that God allows for people to be elected or appointed or things like that, is that what you said? Or how'd you phrase it?
Right, for the government. He
For the government?
Yes. We believe God is sovereign. He controls everything. There's not
Right.
one random molecule.
So do you feel like Donald Trump has a role in that? Like a righteous role or a sinful role, or he just has just a role in it?
Okay, so let me speak for myself. I don't know, Nick, if you want to say something, but my personal opinion is I didn't vote for Trump. I voted for James Lankford from Oklahoma. He wasn't even on
the ticket.
He wasn't anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only one who voted outside of whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because I believe that James Lankford is a born-again believer
Mhm.
who loves Christ
Mhm.
and who would govern well. Now, there's things I like that Trump has done.
Right.
There's things that he's done that I don't like.
Right.
This next election, I won't vote for him again. I like the way the economy is going. African Americans have more jobs now than ever before in this country.
Mhm.
Unemployment's down.
Mhm.
Welfare recipients are down.
Mhm.
Okay, these are good things.
But he also came into office when those things were already...
No,
Wow.
they were. It was on the rise.
Okay.
Obama and Biden actually created the largest deficit we've ever had, the largest welfare population.
That's another thing. They throw out that word deficit. But you're not worried about the deficit when you have these corporations that go to Cayman Islands and get tax breaks. I don't hear the word deficit then. I only hear the word deficit when we're talking about welfare.
Okay. So what about the $1 million that Biden gave to the Ukraine to fire the lawyer that was going to prosecute his son? What about
and
that?
how crooked that looks.
And that was taxpayer money. That's called embezzlement, extortion, and something else. But I can't. Anyway, so I do believe God. Time will tell.
Oh, for sure.
With Trump, if he goes another term, we don't know yet.
We don't know.
We don't know yet. He claims to be a Christian, but you know what? His spiritual advisor is a heretic. She's crazy. She says that when she steps on the White House lawn, God's just stepped on the White House lawn. This is Paula White. She's crazy. And his idea of Christianity is actually anti-Christian.
Yeah.
So, but can God use a non-believer to do good
Oh, yeah.
in a country? Absolutely. We've seen it in the past.
Bible, yeah.
We've seen it in the past, right?
Even when their intent was to do evil, he was
Okay, look
turned around and
at Martin
made it
Luther.
good. Yeah.
Look at Martin Luther King. Okay,
Mhm.
he claimed to be a Christian. He wasn't a Christian because he was a heretic. He was a oneness Pentecostal. He didn't believe in the Trinity. The multitude of crazy stuff that he believed. But what he did for the people in this country was good. Brought awareness to a problem that existed. Right.
Right.
Okay. So I believe that he wasn't a believer. I don't know. Only God does.
Right.
But from the fruit of what he preached, I don't believe he was a believer. But he was still used to bring about justice,
Right.
right? And awareness to bring about justice in this country in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, right? So, yeah, I do believe that God does use non-believers.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And it can be for righteousness, and it can also be for judgment. Yeah. So,
Good dialogue.
What's that?
So good dialogue. I mean, I'm always interested to hear what people are saying on the opposite end. I always feel for those women because I know, like, I mean, Bakersfield is known for not having, you know, people with a high understanding
Right.
education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Level. You know what I'm saying?
What's your
I
name?
always
Absolutely.
feel
What's your
for-
name?
My name is Unicia.
Eunicia, I'm Keith. It's nice to meet
It's
you.
nice to
I'm
meet you
Nick.
as well.
Thanks for.
And you're Gabe?
Nick.
Oh, Nick.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no. And I feel like I'm always speaking for them, speaking for the underdog, speaking for those people, because I've been at the DHS office, Department of Health and Human Services, off of California. I sit there with my clients.
Mhm.
I've sat there for myself when I was struggling through college. Like, I've seen that.
Yeah.
And I know, well, now I have a better understanding that there's an explosion of meth in Kern County. I didn't
bad.
know.
It's
I mean, I
bad.
have clients who are struggling with meth.
Next to Early Mart, which is up north, we're the second worst in the state.
Yeah, when I was living here 7 years ago, I mean, I was so focused in just trying to make it and stay in school. I wasn't aware. You know, I had my own situation going on, but now
Sure.
I can kind of see it because I work for the city, and it's really sad. It's really, really sad. But I have clients who, you know, want to terminate, are concerned that their baby may be hooked on drugs or things like that, or they just don't. And honestly, a lot of them, they shouldn't be parents at all.
It's like that we're not sensitive to people's struggles. I mean, my family has its struggles. You know, I have kids that are rebellious.
Or even the kids that are in the system,
You know,
and they're
I
not
mean-
treated well.
Huh?
Yeah.
The kids
Oh
that are
no,
in the system that aren't
I
treated
think you're
well.
absolutely right.
I mean, I have
Yeah.
a friend to this day who still refuses to go see a therapist, and she is a therapist who grew up in foster care, whose mom was hooked on drugs and still hooked on drugs,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and seeing how she maneuvers through life, and I'm like, friend, you need to go get yourself some help. And pray and
Yeah.
fast, but you still need some
Mhm.
clinical help.
Right. Yeah.
And you're raising a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of like the passage, "The sins of the fathers fall upon the children," and the things that the parents weren't able to overcome. You see, kind of spring up and manifest in the next generation.
Right, because we
Next
learn from our
generation.
parents. We learn from our parents,
It's so
right?
sad.
And
Yeah.
Well,
children
you
want to
learn, but
mimic
I think
their.
that there are certain. I feel that there are certain what's the word, proclivities, the things that your offspring struggle with, things that you as a parent weren't able to overcome, and even if you didn't raise that child, it may come up again and again in that bloodline. Like, I just kind of feel like it does.
Mm.
That's
Well, I mean,
just-
you know, if a parent uses meth, baby's got meth in its system.
yeah,
That could someday but we don't know.
right.
You know,
Be a
spring up in
struggle.
that child as well, but we don't know that. I mean, the chemicals there. The chemical obviously could damage the baby's brain. Sometimes, like you said,
Or you can have
God
a
be-
genetic marker for addiction. It could be an addiction of any sort. That's what I mean.
I think all of us have that genetic marker of some sort that we could be addicted to something.
It could be something.
Yeah.
You
There's
know-
always something to be
It could be a
addicted
substance.
to.
I'm addicted to food because
It could
if
be
I don't
food.
eat it, I die. You know what I mean? So I mean, yeah. No, I think you're right to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to a certain extent. Yeah. I mean, like, for instance, just with my nephews, their father wasn't really in their life. And the things that he struggled with early on with being abusive towards their mother, and even though the children never seen it, they are either on the end of abusing or being the abuser in their relationships, and they weren't even around each other.
Yeah.
To me, that's interesting. And he suffered with addiction, and now his children are suffering with addiction.
Mhm.
I just think that that's so interesting.
I don't know. I mean,
I
that's.
don't know.
I mean,
some of it, like, they weren't even.
we could draw conclusions, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's.
But yeah, those are just my thoughts and my observations, and again, having that insight, that Christian insight, and then that worldly insight, and then just that life, just life in general. That was my most stress. I'm not even gonna lie. My most stress when I was living on faith I was stressed.
Really.
Hair falling out.
So can I ask you a question? Based off of what you know and what you've learned from your experience in church dealing with other believers, how would you say someone is saved?
how would I say somebody saved? Oh,
Has true faith.
has true faith?
Yeah.
That's a hard one for me to answer.
Yeah?
Just because of where I am in my space, in my life.
Okay.
Yeah, that's difficult for me to answer.
Maybe, do you recall, like, maybe how you were raised in that or taught from other churches? Because that would have an influence on how you think now, right? Obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I believe that part of it is when you are saved and you are open to a mighty change in your mind and in your heart, that the Spirit will bring to mind things that you should be working on and overcoming. That's what I believe. When you truly open yourself up.
Right.
Now, how I've been influenced by my parents, I've questioned even now that I don't know who you're praying to, but you're not praying to God, because the God that I know would convict you in your heart and stop you from behaving that way.
Sure.
That is what I know.
It's true.
Sure.
And that is what I've seen in the household of my father and in the household of my mother, because I grew up I didn't even grow up with my dad.
Okay.
And seeing that.
Yeah.
And feeling that in the house, like walking in knowing that I'm walking at that point in time in the Spirit, and there's a different feeling in the home. And then when my stepmom walks in or my dad walks in, all of a sudden there's a shift in the energy in the home.
Yeah.
You know, you can really be in tune and walk with the Spirit, and I feel like I've been there.
Yeah.
Was stressed, was attacked, and doing all that I felt like I should be doing and following God. But you also you kind of have a target on your back. The adversary can see that you would be a change maker and a builder in the kingdom.
Yep.
And that target on my back was so heavy.
Absolutely.
So heavy.
So yeah, the apostles experienced that, right? I mean, you had Paul and Peter; they were jailed, beaten, and you know what's really interesting is the day that they would get released, they'd go right back to the colonnade and preach when they told them not to do it. They did 3 times.
Persecuted and
Absolutely.
tortured and that. And
they're hung on a cross upside down. They were burned. They were stoned.
Not with that. Not in 2019.
Well, I mean, imagine though, like, I mean, you know, so it's an interesting thing to think about, right? I mean, we talk about this from the comforts of the borders of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Very easy to talk about, right? It's 2019. I'm not, I'm not facing that type of persecution. You know, there's Christian brothers and sisters all over the world that are
being persecuted.
bad. You know what I mean? You know, it is a freaky thing to think about. You know, absolutely.
It's very scary.
You know,
I mean, I will share this from, we're in the end of 2019 now. It was the beginning of 2018. I made a decision to walk away from my son and to go serve a mission, to bring people to Christ. And in that space, from January of 2018, and even up until now, even up until yesterday, attack, down to the point where I'm so depressed, I don't even want to live. Not